Mark Carney and the rest of Justin Trudeau's leftover Liberals have successfully convinced Canadians that they are the right people to deal with Donald Trump and what seems to be a never-ending, escalating trade war. Now, Donald Trump today has turned over the chessboard once again and has taken to Truth Social to say that we have just informed that Canada, a very difficult country to trade with, including the fact that they have charged our farmers as much as 400% tariffs for years on dairy products, has just announced that they are putting a digital service tax on our American technology companies, which is a direct and blatant attack on our country. They are obviously copying the European Union, which has done the same thing and is currently under discussion with us. Also, based on this egregious tax, we are hereby terminating all discussions on trade with Canada, effective immediately. We will let Canada know the tariff that they will be paying to do business with the United States of America within the next 7-day period. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So while it can be frustrating for Canadians to note that Donald Trump has moved the goalposts once again and inserted yet another issue into this trade war, it's important to take a critical look and really ask ourselves honestly if our government has done everything they can to avoid this situation. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Johnny Says So, and yet another escalation in the trade war between Canada and the United States. Honestly, guys, this should come as no surprise, as Mark Carney has been doing everything in his power to push Canada away from the United States and towards Europe. We've seen it in the election campaign, and we've seen it this past week at the NATO summit. Now, Mark Gerritsen putting this out on Twitter: "It's quite clear our government purposely sabotaged trade talks following through on this tax. If their livelihoods depended on a good relationship with Trump, you can bet a deal would have been made months ago." Now, these are Trump's comments after he made that Truth Social post. Let's check it out.
So Canada put a charge on some of our companies, and Canada's been a very difficult country to deal with over the years. We hear Canada, we have a great relationship with the people of Canada, but it's been very difficult. And they put a charge, and they were a little bit early, we found out about it. So, and we have all the cards. We have every single one. We don't want to do anything bad, but they have, economically, we have such power over Canada. I'd rather not use it, but they did something with our tech companies today trying to copy Europe. They copied Europe. It's not going to work out well for Europe either. And it's not going to work out well for Canada. They were foolish to do it. So I said, we're going to stop all negotiations with Canada right now until they straighten out their act. Okay?
Is there anything Canada can do to change your mind about this situation?
Well, no, they put a tax on companies that were American companies that they shouldn't, a very severe tax. And I guess they could remove it. They will, but it doesn't matter to me.
Now, he's not wrong there. Removing the digital sales tax is something that Canada can absolutely do to alleviate this situation. The tax not only targets American companies, but let's face it, guys, this is going to make life more expensive for the Canadian consumer. Do you think these companies are just going to eat this tax? I think they're going to pass it on to the consumer, and that's going to be bad for everybody.
We have all the cards. We do a lot of business with Canada, but relatively little. They do most of their businesses with us. And when you have that circumstance, you treat people better. They've had farmers that are getting like 300, 400, 200% in tariffs. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We have cases, you don't read this and the people don't report, but they charge us 400% on some dairy products. 400%. Nobody writes that. And it's not fair to our farmers, and we've got to protect our farmers.
So that doesn't inspire confidence that trade negotiations with the United States are going well at all, which is one of the things Mark Carney campaigned on. Well, that and keeping us safe from the threat of annexation, which is just so preposterous in and of itself. That was never a real threat, guys. As confirmed by CNN just a couple of days ago, Carney says Trump is no longer interested in annexing Canada. Funny how that threat went away as soon as the Liberals secured the election. Check it out.
President Trump tends to be A, transactional, and B, very personal. And sometimes he thinks, or maybe you know differently. Apparently
I don't think...
they say
honestly,
that you're the Trump whisperer of the leaders.
I'm not
and
sure
that
about
you're
that,
on
but...
texting, relations with him, and you're constantly talking. So is he still saying he wants to annex Canada?
He's not. He's not. He admires Canada, I think it's fair to say, and maybe for a period of time coveted Canada, but...
You've put that to bed.
Well, look, we're two sovereign nations who are discussing the future of our trade relationships, our defense partnership, which has been very strong in the past. How is that going to evolve? But again, I would...
Well, I'll tell you how it's going to evolve, because on the campaign trail, Mark Carney was constantly saying things like this.
We will need to ensure that Canada can succeed in a drastically different world. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over. We will need...
So with that, I don't understand how Liberals in Canada can be so upset about Donald Trump announcing that trade with Canada is over when this is what their boy Mark Carney has been saying the entire time. Now, it's not just Mark Carney that's been doing everything in their power to stoke divisive rhetoric between Canada and the United States. Check out what former NDP MP Charlie Angus had to say just today.
An existential threat that must be dealt with. What is it going to be next? Are they going to claim that they found weapons of mass destruction in a garage in Charlottetown or Oakville? South Park, the movie, was funny, but South Park as a political administration is a dismal thing to witness.
That's sort of a two-way street, because Canadian politicians have been just as guilty as resembling a South Park episode. But do go on, Charlie.
And this is all happening while Donald Trump threatens us. They were either going to pay billions in new tariffs or what? Give up our sovereignty, give up our nation? Well, that's not going to happen. So I'm here this morning.
We know it's not going to happen. It's obviously over. It obviously was a troll. I can't believe they're still going with this talking point.
To actually reach out to Kristi Noem and Kash Patel and Ted Cruz and MAGA Ambassador Pete Hoekstra, and any Fox host who wants to weigh in on the Canadian border, to reassure them. Canada is very concerned about the border as well. In fact, we're so concerned that we refuse to travel across it. And your increasing rhetoric against us is making us more determined not to spend a dime in any of your towns, your states, or your country. So let's talk about the state of the Canadian boycott right now. We see that wine sales from the United States to Canada, your number one market, America, is down 93%.
And that's not necessarily a choice of the Canadian consumer. Most provinces, our state-controlled liquor stores, have made this decision for us.
That we've seen a $12.3 billion loss in American tourism. So when Representative James says the epicenter of the threat is Canada, I think he should go talk to some of his tourism operators who are seeing massive losses from Canada. Our refusal to cross the border isn't about fear. It is because we will not stoop to give money to a country that is no longer under the rule of law, where kidnapping people off the streets has become normalized. If you look at the biggest hits that are being faced by the United States in terms of Canadian refusal to spend dollars, number one is Florida. Yeah, the Florida that's talking about building an alligator Alcatraz. A Florida where states officials threaten to shoot people graveyard dead if they protest. That might sound great for MAGA, but
shoot them dead if they protest. I'd expect Charlie Angus to be disingenuous, but this is absolutely egregious. This is what he's referring to, guys. Now let me know if you think this sheriff said that they will kill you dead if you protest. Let's listen.
This has got to stop. If you resist lawful orders, you're going to jail. Let me be very clear about that. If you block an intersection or a roadway, in Brevard County, you are going to jail. If you flee arrest, you're going to go to jail tired, because we are going to run you down and put you in jail. If you try to mob rule a car in Brevard County, gathering around it, refusing to let the driver leave, in our county, you're most likely going to get run over and dragged across the street.
That's perfectly reasonable. See, in Canada, we have no right to self-defense. If somebody is trying to block the road and violently pull you and your children from the car, you would get in serious trouble if you defended yourself with your vehicle. Now, let me know what you think in the comments, but I think that statement is perfectly reasonable.
If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here. If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead.
How disingenuous of Charlie Angus. Now, notice he didn't say, if you peacefully protest, we will kill you graveyard dead. If you point a gun at a police officer, you will be killed graveyard dead. That's not unique to Florida or the United States. That's pretty much a reasonable expectation everywhere. That is the definition of fuck around and find out.
Canadians find that language intolerable and inexcusable. And so, Mr. Ron DeSantis, no, we're not going to spend money in your state. I want to close by speaking to the American representatives who've been coming to Canada on a charm offensive to get us to come back. Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota, who said to Canadians, give us another chance. Really, Senator? I haven't heard you say anything to people like Kristi Noem or Kash Patel. When are you going to start speaking out to them? Or Senator Tim Kaine, who came to Ottawa and said, Canada, we love you. Well, if you loved us, you'd make sure that our citizens didn't have to worry that their phones were going to be seized at the border, and whether or not there's pictures making fun of Donald Trump, and whether or not they're going to be arrested and deported. Because if you're not willing to love us for the fact that we believe in the rule of law, then you don't love us. Or Governor Maura Healey, who came to meet our premiers and said, Canada is Massachusetts' #1 trading partner. Yes, we are. But we're not going back. Or to all the towns that are renaming their streets after Canadian place names in Canada. Thanks, but no thanks. If you loved us, you would love us for our values. What we're seeing right now is a nation that doesn't believe in equity and inclusion or under the rule of law. Those are our values. That's why our Prime Minister, Carney, is over in Europe talking about our new future as being part of Europe and no longer part of the United States.
So that's former NDP MP Charlie Angus arrogantly proclaiming that Mark Carney's values are the values of all Canadians. And he points out that Mark Carney is in Europe right now, which is hilarious because Mark Carney says that Canada is the most European of the non-European countries. So let's check out what Mark Carney was saying over in Europe.
So we're meeting now in that context in, as you just said, in hard times. We might say even a hinge moment of history, a world that's more dangerous and divided, a time where the rules-based international, the global order, rules-based global order is under threat, in a time when technological change is accelerating. And we really have two choices as a jurisdiction, as a country in this circumstance. We can nostalgically look back and long for the old order to somehow return, or we can build a new one with purpose and partnership. And as the most European of the non-European countries, Canada looks first to the European Union.
No, Mark, we are the most American of the non-American countries. And as much as he likes to say that we don't want to nostalgically look back, well, Mark, I'm a child of the 1990s. My whole existence is nostalgia. I, for one, actually do longingly look back at the past when young people could get right out of high school, get a job, afford an apartment, or have enough money to one day get a down payment for a house for their children. That's not the reality for most Canadians. So yeah, Mark, I do like to nostalgically look back at the past.
To build a better world. And that's what today is about. It's about building on our triple alignment of values, of interests, and of trust built over the years. And so today, this is a new era of cooperation. Our strategic Canada-EU or EU-Canada strategic partnership for the future will build a new and deeper relationship that brings us closer together, from defense to digital, from supply chains to security. We're launching comprehensive negotiations across multiple areas of cooperation, connection, trade, security, digital, climate. And this will make us both more resilient and more prosperous. In many respects, what we're committing to, from our perspective, Canada's perspective, is an ongoing process to an ever closer partnership that will bring our people closer together.
Bring our people closer together. He's ignoring the fact that we are geographically tied to the United States, and Donald Trump is going to be gone in 3 years. This, to me, seems very short-sighted and rash. But let me know what you think down in the comments. So who really knows if Donald Trump is actually going to wait 7 days before he makes a decision on trade negotiations with Canada? After all, he told Iran that he was going to give 2 weeks before he made a decision about any sort of U.S. military intervention, before he quickly went in a couple days later with his B-2 bombing campaign. So who knows what the future holds for Canada. But that's my show for tonight, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and as always, smash the like button, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.